Hi everyone, today we're going to begin talking about the Civil War, and we're going to start off with what led to the Civil War. And we're going to start off talking about sectionalism, about how different parts of the country were different, and for starters, the economic interests. The North and the South states differed economically. Northern states had a larger population and a big industrial economy based on manufacturing. So this picture right here shows all the factories. That's what the North had. That's what their economy was based on. They made clothes. They had a lot of products that they were making. Whereas the Southern states had a smaller population and a big agricultural economy. And agriculture is just a fancy word for farming. But see this photo right here? This is what the South looked like. There was farming. They also had different takes on tariffs. You remember, a tariff is a type of tax. A tariff is a tax that's coming from when someone's trying to send something to the United States, the government would tax it. The industrial North favored high protective tariffs to protect northern manufactured goods from foreign competition. They wanted tax on foreign products so people would buy American products. Whereas the agricultural South, they did not favor high tariffs that made the price of imports more expensive. So looking back at these last two slides, you can see that the North and the Southern states are very different. I'm going to have a link to a Wiser Me come up. Just open it up, use your notes to answer the questions. And this just kind of shows how tariffs work. Let's say Britain makes a cloth. They send it to the United States. It costs $4. But the United States is going to charge a 25% tariff. So by the time it comes here, it becomes $5. Whereas in America, if a cloth costs $4, it's going to be cheaper because there's no tax on the American product. There's a tax on the British product. Next, we're going to go into expansion. Our last unit talked about how we got Florida, the Louisiana Purchase, the Texas annexation, the Mexican cession, the Oregon Territory. But as the United States expands, there begins to be disagreements about whether the new states/territories should have slaves or should not have slaves. Northern states opposed slavery and wanted the new states to be free states. And free states means that slavery is not allowed. Southern states are for slavery, and they wanted the new states to be slave states. And that means slaves are allowed there. So because the North and the South didn't agree, they had to come to compromises. And a compromise is when you don't necessarily get what you want, but you get a little bit. And it would be like if I'm selling my bike for $100 and somebody wants to buy it for $50. A compromise would be $75. We both find something in the middle. So the first compromise was the Missouri Compromise, and it drew an east/west line through the Louisiana Purchase at the 3630 line. And slavery was prohibited, illegal, above the line, but it was allowed below the line. Except slavery was allowed in Missouri, even though it's above the line. So Missouri is a compromise. Even though it's above the line, it's allowed to have slavery. And Maine was added to the Union as a free state. So this is the line right here for the Missouri Compromise. So above this line in the Louisiana Territory is free. Slavery is not allowed. Below the line, slavery is allowed. The exception is Missouri. And these are the southern states that had slavery. Northern states did not have slavery. And Maine was added to the Union as a free state. So slavery was not allowed there either. In 1850, there's another compromise. And this is called the Compromise of 1850. This makes California a free state And the southwestern territories acquired from Mexico, the Mexican cession, would decide the issue of slavery on their own. So states slash territories, because they're not necessarily states yet, they get to vote. They decide if they want to have slavery or not. So the federal government isn't telling them what to do. The Southwest Territories, they're allowed to decide on their own. So this map shows the Compromise of 1850. You can see California is added as a free state. And the Utah Territory, New Mexico Territory, they have what's called popular sovereignty. That means they get to decide. But all these green states are free states and territories. The yellow states are slave territories. And the red, it's up to them if they want to have slavery or not. And the last one is called the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And this repealed, got rid of the Missouri Compromise. And it gave people in Kansas and Nebraska the choice on slavery, which is popular sovereignty. And this enraged, which means made angry, those opposed to slavery. So people who are against slavery were very upset about the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And this led to bloody fighting in Kansas between pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces known as Bloody Kansas. And it led to the birth of the Republican Party in 1854, which opposed the spread of slavery. So this is the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And what happened with the Kansas-Nebraska Act is, if you go back, the Missouri Compromise said all of this was free. It was a free territory. Slaves, you were not allowed to have slavery here. But Kansas-Nebraska Act, now they're saying popular sovereignty. It switched from being free to being they're allowed to decide. And this upset a lot of people in the Kansas territory and a lot of people who were abolitionists who were against slavery. So the North and the South are starting to get very upset with each other, and this is eventually going to lead to the Civil War. The North and the South are going to fight each other. If you guys have any questions, let me know.